So there's an interesting case that's currently happening in Ireland that I thought you guys might be interested in. It's involving a guy called Enoch Burke. Now, this is a guy that's been locked up for 500 days now for what I can only see as a refusal to engage in compelled speech. Now, obviously, there's mitigating circumstances that have gone into it since then, but the initial claim was that he didn't want to engage in compelled speech by using the pronouns they, them. When a transgender student came up, piped up, like the most rational of people in the world, right? The transgenders, piped up and was like, I want you to start calling me by my preferred pronoun. Enoch didn't want to do that, so he's told the person no, in no uncertain terms, and he was fired from his job. And since then, from what I can gather, he's been periodically turning up to the school to protest the fact that he was dismissed. So we can get into this a little bit more now. Joshua Burke's comments, so this is the guy, this is his brother, I think, Joshua Burke. His comments have posted that the High Court, their ruling on the 3rd of December, ruling that his brother Enoch Burke was in contempt of court and framing that as a punishment for refusing to use they, them pronouns for a transgender student based on religious convictions. He was... So his case began in 2022 with his dismissal from Wilson's Hospital School for non-compliance of pronouns, which is mental, guys. Like compelled speech, that is the ultimate tyranny of the state. Subsequent trespassing violations have led to 4 prison stints, with the latest denying Christmas release unless contempt is purged by adhering to non-trespass orders. So, unless he agrees that he's never going to go onto school grounds ever again, he will remain in jail. And you might be thinking, well, just say that I'm not going to turn up anymore. But the thing is, the school itself, Wilson's High School, is a co-educational boarding and day school in Multyfarnham, County Westmeath in Ireland, and it's operating under the patronage of the Church of Ireland. And it receives funding from the government. So it's basically a government school paid for by the taxpayers and run by the Church of Ireland, who for some reason are backing up a transgender student for demanding that someone uses their preferred pronouns. So it's all government run, and it's run by the Church of Ireland. So I think he's got every right as a tax-paying citizen to be able to go and protest his dismissal on the school grounds. And the reason that I think the government hates this so much is because it's an affront to their authority, which we'll get into in a second. So, Burke has repeatedly trespassed on the grounds of Wilson's Hospital School as a form of protest, which I think is legitimate, against his dismissal. It stemmed from his refusal to use they, them pronouns for a transgender student. So, I mean, it's brutal, guys. A transgender student in 2022, his defiance led to a court injunction barring him from the premises. And he continued to show up to assert his right to work, which what else are you supposed to do? It's a government-run school. It's a government-funded school, sorry. It's run by the Church of Ireland. You should be allowed to protest the fact that you got fired for not using compelled speech. So it resulted in multiple imprisonments for contempt of court, already totaling over 500 days in prison. And the latest ruling on the 3rd of December 2025 by the High Court has denied his release for Christmas until he purges the contempt by agreeing not to trespass. Now, the reason I have a problem with this is the state has compelled him to use language that he didn't want to use, so they then got rid of his right to work. They fired him from his job. They then made sure that he wasn't allowed to protest against this in any effective means and locked him up for doing so. Now, imagine that was the state compelling you to convert to Islam and you didn't want to. They fired you from your job because you didn't convert. Or maybe they came out and said you're not allowed to go to church anymore. No Irish citizen is allowed to go to church anymore. In fact, church grounds are barred. You're not allowed to trespass. You're not allowed to go onto church grounds. Now, what would you do? You'd keep going to the church grounds, wouldn't you? You'd do it as a form of protest. And the fact that the government can compel someone to use language, they can bar you from government-funded or church-run institutions to protest the fact that you got unlawfully dismissed, in my eyes, that is a massive overreach. And there's been more that's been going on behind this. So some people have viewed it as a very harsh overreach, right? So he's currently spent 500 days in Mountjoy prison. Not for any criminal convictions, guys. He hasn't actually been criminally convicted. This is just a civil matter. But for a civil contempt stemming from his refusal to comply with a court injunction barring him from the school premises. Critics argue this is unusually severe. I'd say so. He's got more time served already than most rapists. For what began as a workplace dispute over pronouns and religious beliefs. And the compelled speech, guys, it won't stop with just the he, her bullshit, or she, him, or they, that, or whatever the fuck they want to call themselves. It's going to go way further. You won't be allowed, Islamophobia, right? Islamophobia laws, anti-Semitism laws, maybe criticizing maybe using the word brown in a sentence will be outlawed eventually. So the framing that it's an ordeal of martyrdom for Christian principles. So that's one of the things he said. He's saying that this is against his Christian beliefs, and that's why he has to protest this. Again, I can completely understand. And the fact he's doing this against the Church of Ireland, which, like the Church of England, seem to fully adopt the LGBTQ plus nonce movement, kind of speaks for itself. Figures like Elon Musk have come out to protest this. Well, He's mentioned it in his tweets with statements like wow or geez, like what's going on, like that kind of thing. Financial penalties, this is where it gets serious, right? So he's actually been fined a lot of money for this as well. So in addition to prison time, Burke has accrued fines exceeding €150,000. So not only have they fired him from his job, they fined him €150,000. They then froze his bank account, seized his €40,000 assets and savings, and gave them to the school, or not, gave them to the court. And then they took his salary from the job that he was in at the time and started sending that directly to the school for damages that had been accrued. So they financially destroyed him. They fired him from his work. They've destroyed his character, and now they've started locking him up indefinitely for protesting this. And there is no term limit on this, guys. He can stay in jail for the rest of his life if he doesn't say that he's not going to continue to protest. So he has to come out and say, all right, fair cop, I'm gonna stop protesting the fact that you've tried to ruin my fucking life, you've got me fired from my job, and you've took my life savings. Yeah, all because I didn't want to use someone's preferred pronouns. Now, I think that's pretty ridiculous. I don't know about you guys. I think that's about as bad as it gets. Now, there's also been claims of the judge or the judicial system itself being vindictive. When he was actually in the court, the High Court judge, Brian Cregan, supposedly had a personal bias against him and engaged in misconduct. The 3 points raised were, the judge himself threatened to remove the family if any of the members decided to speak up in court, which is supposedly illegal. So again, personal bias and threatening to use what are overarching powers to silence critics of his actions within the courtroom. You've got the reliance on the media. During questioning, the judge The judge allegedly referenced and quizzed Burke on details from an Irish Independent article by journalist Shane Phelan, which Burke's side calls lying and obfuscation. So he's referencing an article by some guy called Shane Phelan, which the family say is complete bullshit, but the judge has ignored their pleas and continued to reference this article by someone that isn't part of the family, isn't part of the legal system, but the judge has referenced that. What would probably, or sounds like, a very damning article against Burke. Again, that's not right. So you've got another one, denial of seasonal release. So this is also important. Unlike previous years where Burke has received temporary Christmas releases despite ongoing contempt of court, the Judge Cregan, Judge Wanker, has ruled against it this time because Burke purges his contempt by agreeing not to... he's ruled against it unless Burke purges his contempt by agreeing not to trespass at Wilson's hospital school. So he's using this. He's saying, look, you've got to promise me, you've got to supplicate yourself to me and say that you're not going to do this again. You have to promise me that you're never ever going to protest against our rulings ever again. Burke has said no, so he continues to remain in prison, which again is really very strange. The fact that he's been in prison for 500 days, in stints, but still 500 days in total, and that now they're refusing the normal traditional seasonal releases so he can go home and see his family over Christmas and Christian holidays. Christian holidays. So the broader financial and legal measures, earlier actions like freezing Burke's bank account in 2025 to £40,000 of fines, redirecting his salary, like I said. This is all seen as punitive actions, a punitive campaign aimed at breaking him financially, spiritually, and personally. And some observers, including international figures, have echoed this, calling the saga a dark and shameful day for Ireland's judicial system. Now, I don't know about you guys, but I think this is fucking shocking. I really hate this, like properly hate this, because it just shows you how it reminds me a little bit of what happened with Tommy Robinson. Tommy Robinson is said by a lot of people to be a yobbo and a lout, and he's got these criminal convictions, but actually it's been the state using lawfare against him quite often, although I wouldn't say that he's been particularly intelligent with the way that he's engaged with the state. And a lot of the things that he's done are beyond the pale, like trying to get into countries by using fake passports, which is fucking mental. Why would you do that? So it reminds me a little bit of what the state have done to other political actors in the UK. The state, as you all know, guys, the state is not run particularly well in the West right now. We're seeing a politicisation of court proceedings, of settlements, of court rulings. We've seen this in the favour of migrants coming into this country, the fact that they get very lenient sentences compared to what a white person would get, the fact that they're barred from being deported because of ECHR rights and chicken nuggets and all this bullshit. We're seeing activist judges using their powers because they know they're never ever going to be made accountable. So I would like anyone in Ireland who, happens to know Mr. What's his name? What's the judge's name? Brian Cregan, Justice Brian Cregan. Make it known how much you despise that guy if you see him in the streets. I'm not saying do anything physical against him, nothing illegal. Just call him a fucking piece of shit and a traitor, because he is one. Just make it very known to him personally that what he's doing is against the interests of the Irish people. That you guys can see this as a slippery slope. How doing this to one person will open the door to do it to anyone else that defies the fucking statements of Judge Brian Cregan. How dare you defy Judge Brian Cregan? For what he says is law. I am the law! Anyway, guys, it's a sorry state for the future if that's happening right now in Ireland, because, well, we're seeing that these things are a slippery slope. And what's happening there could very easily happen here. We saw recently with the Sentencing Council how they wanted to push through legislation that would sentence white people in the UK, particularly white men, in a much harsher manner than minorities or women. So they've got these plans already in place to penalise the people that they see as a threat in this country. So all we can do is highlight what's happening here and then do our own small things in our own small way to make sure that these people know that we're not going to accept it. If you want to go support this guy, then go on X, find out more about him. You can talk to his family members. I'm sure there'll be like a donation thing or something like that out there to help him. yeah, I don't think this is good. I think this is a man standing on principle, and I don't care what anyone says. If you forego your principle and you allow the state to destroy your life without protesting, then what's the point? What's the point in having a country? What's the point, guys? What are we fighting for if we let this happen? See you later.